Okay, my friends, most exciting day today at Mudfossil University. Roger Spur here talking about Mars, which we did go to Mars. Maybe we didn't go to the moon. I have no idea. But I can tell you one thing for sure. I have studied this very carefully, and we absolutely went to Mars. And these are going to be the pictures from Mars. Now, this goes way back to 2004 was the first, what they called it, I think it was Opportunity, then Curiosity, and now Perseverance. Curiosity is the one that I got involved with heavily. I followed every single thing they did, and everything was wide open at that time. And then it just, and I'll show you why it went. Let's start. Okay, my friends, hang on to your hats. Another shocker du jour, gratis, of Mudfossil University. Roger Spur here. What are we going to be talking about? Mars. I know a lot of people think, oh, we never went to Mars. We went to Mars. I followed this thing better than the people that were doing the research. I was on every bit of this from the beginning to today, and I have never seen so much incompetence anywhere in my life. All right, this is from the Science Channel. And Mars blueberries, traces of life that once called the red planet home, ? NASA's unexplained files. Well, virtually everything they did was unexplained because they're not looking at the evidence. Now, this is Opportunity started transmitting mission controls. Elation started, turns to shock from what they saw. Now this goes back to 2004. That's 20 years ago. All right, what were they shocked about right here? They call them the Mars blueberries. They were everywhere. Spherical grains, and this is really bizarre, yes. 20 years ago now. So now they're racking their brain. Where did they come from? What are they doing here? How did they get these little balls on Mars? All right, this is Stanton Friedman. He's a big hotshot in astrophysics. He says, well, we get rid of mysteries by naming things, giving a name, something we can understand. We just called them the Mars blueberries and then just walked away from it. And he said, I think we're too quick to just walk away from something because we gave it a name. Yes, because we have the identical same things here on Earth. Identical. Oh, yeah, you see this? This is what's called basement layer. All of these Mars blueberries are on top of that, just as they are the Moki marbles. Now here is the assumption, obviously. They say obviously something powerful had happened that blew these little balls up into the air and made these balls, and they fell down everywhere. There's no question about it. It's completely obvious. Well, I say no, it isn't at all. All right, so here's their explanation. A giant meteorite hit and blew all these little round balls, and then they came down. The effects of meteorite impacts provides exciting new information. All right, this is from Chinese TV. You didn't see much of it on American TV. And this goes back about 10 years ago, and this is about the Mars rover captures image of a crab-like object. Listen to what she has to say.
And finally, let's turn our attention to the story that's gaining a lot of attention online. The Mars Curiosity rover has taken a strange image of a crab-like object on the red planet. Now, the picture is captivating the minds of space enthusiasts all over the world. Amid the social media buzz that followed the release of the pictures by NASA, some claim to find is proof of alien life. Sadly, however, scientists have been quick to offer a logical explanation. They attribute it to the same phenomenon that causes people to see shapes in the clouds.
Yeah, all they said was, oh, that's just pareidolia. Let's look at something else. All right, this is pretty good. There's 9 things up on Mars that they can't explain, and they just don't want to talk about. Now, this is the one I'm going to show you in a second. There's no denying this whatsoever. Now, listen to this.
Crab. In July 2015, Curiosity beamed back a horrifying image that seemed to show a large, crab-like creature sitting in the mouth of a cave. Enhancing the image reveals a set of spindly limbs and what could be a pincer. NASA refused to investigate. Did we miss any out?
Yes, you did. You missed the Mars Morse code, and I will explain that in a second. But this is very good that they wanted to do this. This is called whatculture.com, science, what culture. This goes back 8 years ago, and this happened before that. They made a montage of all these different 9 strangest things spotted on Mars, and very briefly, boom, 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 right down the line. And yes, I understand what they were seeing because it is biology. Look at this guy, very good response. NASA refuses to investigate. Then what are they driving around Mars for? NASA refused to investigate. NASA refused to investigate. I sent them all this. I said, that is biology. I'm going to show you the biology it is. And then the crazy thing is, I submitted all this to Yale too. Ends up, NASA gives Yale a bunch of money to do a study to see if it's possible that things could petrify in this manner as I showed. And Yale said, yes, it is possible. Soft tissue. Well, here, let me show you what they did say. This is their paper. And now this is from 2016. I submitted all this long before that to Yale. Exceptional preservation of soft-bodied creatures promoted by silica-rich oceans. That's exactly what I talked about. Silica, all heavy silicon, I said 50 times. It's in that area. Exceptional preservation. Soft-bodied, they just named Edicarta biota to make it confusing to the average person. It just means soft-bodied creatures. And it's worldwide, this one layer, and they call it the Triassic. Tri means red bed, gray clay, black cap. And I have all that right here in my shop. And I'm in the Triassic era, and all this stuff comes from that era. This was the Great Flood. This is what kills them. This is what the academics are so very, very up against. Now, let me show you that Mars crab. But this is, again, this is from Yale, and this is long after I submitted all this stuff to them and to NASA. And who paid for this? Well, NASA did. Hold on, here's what it says right here. And this is very good. This is from the same time that they released this study and so forth, Yale News, and we figured it all out and all this nonsense. But they're talking about these are supposed to be the first fossils that ever, there was no creatures before this. And these didn't even have teeth or bones or anything. Well, I absolutely did. These are bones. That's my buddy Caesar. He's a goose or some kind of a feathered fowl. And if anybody knows that pattern of feather, I'm still trying to find somebody. I've seen it before. Somebody said a wood duck. I looked at him. I don't think so. But anyway, this is some kind of a waterfowl. Anyway, everything here petrified flawlessly because of this specific situation. It was a hot water flood. They don't understand any of this. And they say it's from 540 million years ago. The creatures were small as a few millimeters, as large as a meter. No, they were just absolutely enormous. Many of them are outright bizarre. Don't resemble anything alive today. They're saying maybe it's some sort of failed evolutionary experiment. Yes. Yes, it was exactly what it was. All right. A big part of the answer involves how they fossilized. I know how they fossilized. It's because of the collagens and the kerogens coming down from phospholipids, which is P, down to aluminum silicates, which is feldspar. And virtually everything here is coated with feldspar. Now they say these animals were before even the evolution of shells or teeth or bones. Obviously not true. Obviously not true. And guess who paid? And this is who I submitted my stuff to, Derek Briggs. And we went back and forth for quite some time, and finally he just didn't want to hear any more about it. But now he's taking credit for it. And they actually renamed geology and geophysics to planetary sciences. Because they know now it's at Mars. I know they must know this. There's nobody that's that inept. He cannot be that incompetent. And now they are saying, yes, this all happened. Well, why won't they take a look? Look, we're supported by National Science Foundation, Earth Sciences, a grant from America and this society, and Clark Fund, NASA, exobiology grant, NASA fellowship, Foundation of Complex Life, NASA. They funded them for doing the work that I had already done. All right, I don't think that's right. So let's talk about the Mars crab. And I said again, boom! I hit it like a ton of bricks. Everybody had the same information that I had in all of the major universities and all of the government agencies. I sent it to everybody. Now I might have been cut out of it because they put me on a lot of spam lists. Because I did. I sent it to everybody. I mean, I sent it to people in government. They're spending $20 billion a year for NASA. You'd think they have somebody up there that could understand biology. The Mars Moki marbles and the Mars blueberries, right there, identical. Something should have been tripped off. Let's investigate. This, tell me what that is. I could tell you what it is, and I did. Okay, there's a lot of ancient stories about Earth being literally a creature's head or a creature or something. Gaia, and then if you look into Apollodorus and Hesiod and all that, the Earth is an entity, basically, that mated with the sky and had all kinds of monsters and giants and crazy things. Now, even the academics say in their Gaia hypothesis that the Gaia theory proposes that the living organisms interact with their inorganic surroundings on Earth to form a synergistic, means that we'll all work together, self-regulating complex system, yes. It helps to maintain and perpetuate the conditions for life on the planet, and we have totally destroyed that. Now, who else thinks that the planet was a living creature, and it needs to have the interaction of living things, and we have diverted everything and sucked everything out and burnt everything up and converted and distorted and chemicalized everything on the planet. And guess what Jesus Christ said? He said, whoever has come to understand the world has found only a corpse. It's only a corpse. The Earth is literally a corpse. I'm going to show you, I'm going to start right off with Mars being the same as the Earth too. Because as far as I could determine, the ancient things that were written in the mythology, all appear to be true. These were gods. Whoever has found this corpse is superior to the world. It just means you know more. There's literally nobody on Earth that would have ever suspected this, and I did not either. And I don't think anybody has in history until I started putting the pieces together. And this is from the Nag Hammadi text. And Jesus said, whoever has come to understand the world has found only a corpse. And he also said in number 80 that you found a body. You know, Jesus said, he who has recognized the world has found a body, the body. But he who has found the body is superior to the world. Now, it puts you in a frame of mind to be understanding above others. That's the way I'm taking this. It's not you're superior to anything. I'm certainly not superior to anything. However, I understand what I see. And these things are for you to see, and then to give to others as a test. That's the whole deal here. These aren't things just for you to see and go home and say, oh, no, I'm smart. No. You're going to be smart. You're going to be understanding, which you're not now. If you're going to and accepting academic interpretations of the things that I'm showing you, they refuse to investigate. And this is what they refuse to investigate right here. Let's start with the Mars crab. you know, before we do that, I have DNA tests on this, which is a left human hand. This is the pad that runs down here to your little finger. That's the tendon that runs back. This, right, the little crack here, is the cleave between the two pads where you can pinch your hand together. This is the grip skin, the silver stuff. It's just peeling off, because that's the grip skin peels right off. It's like a coating, and I'll show you that in a second. And this is where the thumb went off this way. Now I have some of the fingers and the knuckles and so forth. I got more than what I'm showing here, but and I had this DNA tested, and I had some stuff CAT scanned. And this, I also had another. Here's the CAT scans. These are 2D CAT scans. I had 2D and 3D. The 2D are the best. This is a fingertip, and that's where the fingernail was. It's about that size. And because the hand that I just showed you is 3 feet wide, a little over 3 feet wide. All right, and then these fingertips were, you know, I mean, pretty good size. And this was the back of the finger, and these are the two tendons run up the side, the black and the whitish looking because of the different colored blood, and the bone, and that's the fingertip, and that one was CAT scan because it was small enough to CAT scan. Now here's the big one. This one right here, that's a fingernail. You see that? Take your time and look at this. This comes around this way, all the way around the fingernail up here, and it's nicely, it's in good shape. Now, that's the fingernail, still attached. This is the little, it's cartilage, I believe, and it's between the bones so they don't rock against bone to bone. That's it right there, that little round disc. See that? All right, so here's the fingernail. There's a little bumper pad. We got a vein and artery coming up. Now this piece right here was attached when I first found this. And I couldn't find any way to see where I could get any blood out of it. So what I did do was take a sledge and pop right there, and it just popped right off like a scab, because it's as I show you here, and it still had the fingerprints on it. Here's right here. That's the fingerprints. That is a sweat pore. That's a sweat pore. You see it? And that's the ridge, same as these here. Now, this literally is a scab. It just came right off just like that. And it wasn't really, it was just barely glued to here. It popped right off. And then underneath it is saturated with blood. You know, it dried blood, but you could take it right out. These are saturated, your fingertips are saturated with blood. You see how much blood is in the fingertips? That's why they preserve so well. Blood makes things preserve well. It just does. This is that fingertip that I showed you was in the CAT scan. Now the reason this Velcro is on there, I'm holding this piece on, which I took it off of here so I could see the bone, and you can actually see the bone. And this is the fingertip, and this is the bottom of the fingertip. And right there, if you were an anatomist, you would know there's an apical tuft. It's a round ball like this, and as a matter of fact, here's one right here, totally eroded, right there. And every one of those little sockets here had balls in them, and those straps. You see the straps running back? This is where it's set right there. You see it? You can see it's round. If you, in the right light, you can see all these things can be seen quite easily. And that's what allows you to do all these little fancy things with your fingertip. And there's that cut right there. Any anatomist that really knows his business would know that right there is where the tendons invest. All right. Now, so they're saturated with blood. There's blood. Actually, some of them leak the blood right out of them. I'm not kidding you. I have ones that leak blood right out. And but anyway, I had the big one. There was no blood on the surface. There was no place I could find where I could find to get any blood. So And right under there, saturated with blood. Now, the same DNA tests I had done, don't forget I had this done, I had the one with the smaller fingertip and the big hand, and then this I had done as well, which is also a human lung. So this is about our size, maybe a little bigger. And this is where the lung invests at the bottom. It's saturated with blood. I drilled a hole inside. Well, you can't take it from the surface because you're going to get the contamination. I don't care what you do. You got to drill inside, which is why I broke that off. And you got to drill inside. Now I can get blood right out of here. There's no problem. If I scraped this down and then took it, it would be fine. But you got to get a little past the surface. Well, I would say a pretty good distance past the surface. And then the second drill is where, of course, you're cleaning and everything. And you got to use precautions. And the second drill is what you take the stuff from, and then I sent it off to be DNA tested, and they did a fabulous job. 3 DNA tests, the lung and the 2 fingertips. All 3 of them came back as human mitochondrial DNA. All right, this is right from NASA. This is a NASA picture. That's the crab exploded, so we can see it, and this is what it looks like in the matrix of stone that it's in. Now, what would form such a thing? And NASA just said, well, it's just one of those things. It's pareidolia, you're seeing something that isn't there. No, I say it's PhDolia. The more you get educated, the less you can see reality. PhDs can't see what they're seeing right in front of their face. Any biologist should know, an anatomist, that that's an artery. And these are the blood vessels, and that's the vein coming back up to be resurfaced. And this is muscle sarcomeres. You say, well, Roger, how can you say that? Well, here's how I can say it. I can show you exactly how I can say it. You see that thing right there? That's the artery. All of those little jobbers going in, the legs, are blood vessels to feed this muscle sarcomere. And you say, how do I know it's a muscle sarcomere? Well, I can show you why. You see these breaks here? That break here. Let me use my little pointer here. So here we are feeding the muscle with blood, because muscles have to contract. And to do that, they require a lot of oxygenated blood and transition metals and so forth. It's a little bit of a process, but it's nothing really that sophisticated. You have 2 sets of slabs, and they come right in together. When they open up, they're relaxed. When they come together, it's contracted. So that muscle can do this, or it can do this. Not a big thing. Now, how do they do that? They do it with what's called a sarcomere. And this basically is a sarcomere. It has one of these and one of these, and when it pulls together, they go together. So that instead of being that wide, it's this wide. Now let me show you on, and the stuff that's left here is connective tissue. Connective tissue is collagens and keragens. It's a really tough, strappy substance, and that is connective. It connects things in your body. Connective tissue. It's tendons and all the really fibrous stuff. Now let's see what this looks like if it was anatomically looked at. And don't forget, we need a lot of blood. And as a matter of fact, I have one of these in my shop. I'm going to show you. It didn't erode this much, but it has all the same stuff. First of all, we're going to look at what the sarcomeres look like. All right, so let's do that. All right, you see this? These are like gluey places where the sarcomere blocks glue together. And then they have this in between where when they contract, they slide together. This is contracted. You don't see the white, open white spots anymore. Contracted is this. Open is this. So when they pull together. I don't know much more I can explain. It's obvious. Contracted, expanded. And each one of these blocks is a sarcomere. All right, every one of these blocks it basically is a sarcomere. Now, the blood is distributing to all of these. The blood has to infuse into your muscles really fast when you're working hard. That's why your heart starts pumping, and that's because it needs to get all that blood flowing through there. I mean, there's an absolute ton of blood flowing through your muscles when you're working them. Now check this out. This is a chunk of muscle right up here. This piece back to here is tendon, and then there was a bone here. Here it is up in a shot here, not showing the bone. All right, the bone, it's like from here over. This is complete tendon. See, it's brown, there's no blood in it to speak of. This is where all the blood gushes in. These are arteries, and they're gushing blood into this muscle, which still has a lot of fibrous stuff in it. Muscles transition from tendon, an abrupt transition, and you get into muscle, and then the muscle gets less and less fibrous. You see how that fiber is broken right there? That you would consider an abrupt transition. All right, but it's been in the ground, and you could see it was laying like this way, where the blood ran out of these arteries. Now this is where those little legs would have gone, and they eroded out of here, so that the legs are very fragile. But in the one from Mars, they stuck, because there's no water erosion at Mars. You see how perfect that is? And that's raw blood right there. That is actually blood still plugged into that artery. And I'm going to show you an artery I have here, because I have giant stuff coming out of my ears. And here, here's an artery right here. Same thing as that. And I showed this in great detail. This is an artery of a giant creature. The Earth is the same as Mars was. There was giant creatures, and I have them, and I can show these day in and day out. Hair follicles this size. Things that I have a friend, Tyson Carlson, Tyson's Mudfossil Adventures. He's got a site that it shows things that are so unbelievable. That the membranes that he can show out there in Oregon are in us see-through. You could hold up the membrane, a sheet of it like this. It's really a sheet of elastic, almost like plastic. That's what collagens are. And you could look right through it. His, I think they measured out at least 6 feet thick, the membrane. 6 feet compared to see-through. That's what we're up against here, and this is what is freaking these people out. If you want reality, you're going to have to step into the world of reality, which is the world of mythology. I know it sounds crazy, but that's just a fact. All right, as Jesus Christ said, you'll find the earth as a corpse. And all of this stuff is from, it looks like to me, bodies that are now dead. And he also said, you'll find the earth, if you find the earth, you'll find the body. Now, what exactly these things mean, I'm going to tell you one thing. These are from bodies, and the earth is literally now, I believe, a corpse. I think at one time it was self-sustaining and living on its, as a living creature almost. Or, yes, probably completely. But this stuff here, I'm telling you right now, the Moki marbles are identical to the Mars blueberries, and they are also eroding from walls like this. This was erosion from skin. This is skin. It's Huntington Beach in the United Kingdom. That is skin, my friends. And that right there is the flesh under the skin that's held in position with all these balls. It's called interstitium. And you can pull it this way and pull it that way, and it'll come back to where it was originally. And the only reason these balls are laying here is because it's been eaten away, and the balls don't erode like the mud does, which is the clay, which is the flesh. And here it is right here. There's the red flesh, and these balls are eroding from the walls, and the skin is collapsing above it into here. Now, this is what it looks like in biology. And this is they've just recently discovered this interstitium fluid-filled highway, which I believe is right here. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. This is what I just showed you down here. That's it right there. There's the skin, and there's the floppy stuff, and the balls eroded out. If the water was washing this down, this is what you'd have. Balls are all down here because they don't erode. You'd see this is all be red fleshy stuff, and there's the white skin at the top. These balls are everywhere. That's why you see them everywhere. They're just everywhere. And they are everywhere on Earth. And there's no explanation for them, so the geologists won't talk about them. This is what happens. NASA will not discuss the things that they discovered because they have no explanation for it. So instead, they just keep walking around in circles. I presented there's no reason whatsoever that the things that I am presenting here shouldn't be looked at. So I went ahead and did a DNA test and CAT scans and, the whole 9 yards. And I proved everything I'm saying, and they still won't look at it. That's just not right. So don't forget now, I showed you the Mars crab, which is muscle and an artery with the vein. And the creatures are just absolutely stunningly large. Same thing on Earth. So I showed you that. I showed you my giants. I showed you the Mars blueberries. I didn't show you this. And this is one they missed in that 9 craziest things they found on Mars. This is the interstitium. They call it the Mars Morse code. And they look at it and say, how the hell did that happen? Now, this proves 2 things. First thing is, this is the layer of skin just below the skin, and the skin has eroded away, been basically sandblasted. This is more strong than the fluidy, floppy, red, fleshy stuff, and it eroded away from basically sandblasting. And the reason I can say that with surety is because of this. You see that? That's like somebody dusted that off with a sandblaster, just a real light one. Now, why are these balls missing their straps? Here's the reason. It's on a rise. The skin is gathered here. It's gathered here, gathered here. This is bumped up. And these are pinched down in a well. But they're pinched together. You see how close they are? And all the pinch. It should be something like this. This is your normal fabric of your skin. Well, this is stretched out, first of all, because it's over the top of this bump. And then the erosion comes and takes away the cheapest stuff. The cheapest stuff was the red fleshy stuff. That goes. Then you get to the strappy stuff. Strap is not nearly as tough as the balls. So eventually all the straps go away and you end up with the balls. This is an area which will be preserved for a very, very long time. A lot of this other stuff may eventually get eroded down. But the reason I say this is on Mars is there's no question whatsoever. You can't get this texture on Earth. It can't happen. There's moisture and rain and everything. It's not on Mars. Mars doesn't have that atmosphere. And again, that's all explained in these ancient texts. And Velikovskys is the one that did all of the research on that. They destroyed his life for doing that. Well, we have so much information now that there's no reason that this, it's proven now. Velikovsky had the accounts of the ancients. And they were all the same everywhere in the world. And the things like this were not a joke to them. These were not a joke. These were not a joke. Venus, according to Velikovsky and according to the ancient texts, not just Velikovsky, it said the feared god Jupiter, who was Zeus, gave birth to a fiery comet that almost hit Earth, which wiped out everything on Earth and caused the Triassic era. It was the Great Dying, it was called. Everything was destroyed. There was red bed, gray clay, black cap. Then Venus, and it turned out to be Venus, this fiery comet. It was so hot, it boiled the oceans. And that's all written down in the ancient texts as well. Coleman Bible says the trees will be destroyed and the oceans will boil and the creatures will be engulfed. And that's what happened. Creatures boiled and they turned into body parts. That's why I have all these body parts. Cellulose and all that stuff sort of broke down almost exclusively. So that's why you don't really see a lot of trees. People say, oh, those are trees, those are trees. No, not usually. They're good. Some of them are giant hairs, literally giant hair. Giant hair, this big around. And I mean, this one here is a hairball that I have here. It's not that big around, but it's pretty good size. And they got just absolutely stunningly large, as you can see from this picture. If that's skin and that's flesh, and these are the tendon balls, forget about it. Forget about it. Now this is that layer this is the layer of interstitium they just discovered, a newfound organ, which is that fluid-filled highway. And this is where all those balls accumulate in here. You see them down here? That's so you can stretch your skin and do all that stuff and it will come back. This here is up on Mars too. That's a vein and an artery. There was something sticking up. It looks like it might have been a foot or something. I don't know what it was. But that's the vein and artery. Everything else eroded away. And you can see, you see these little ripples here? If you look close at the details, you can see some things that make sense. You see this? This is like the artery coming up out of there. And it would, if this had been up this high, and everything just eroded, that's the tough spot. That's much tougher than these. But you see the little ripples? See the little ripples? And here's the artery would be coming up this, it would still be sticking up just as it is in that last picture I showed you. Either that or something's growing up there, a tree or something. But I say it's what I just said it was. And this is the muscle, little muscly looking stuff, see? And these, as far as I'm concerned, were vein and artery. Probably the artery here. The artery is normally bigger than the vein. I think I have showed a ton of stuff to support my claims. And not to have it looked at and paying $20 billion a year to these people. And having them say, wow, we think we might have found some popcorn or something. Hold on. All right, this just came out today, 20th of June, 2024. Perseverance finds strange popcorn rocks on Mars suggesting past water flow. This. Perseverance's mission is centered on life on ancient Mars, along with searching for fossilized evidence of ancient life. It's searching for and trying to understand environments that could have supported life. Well, let's look at the life that was there, and then we'll discuss that. This is insanity. It's been 10 years they've been just driving around here, and oh, we don't want to look at that. I can't imagine being part of this. I really can't. It's stunning, absolutely stunning. What's on there that they just either have no interest in or they have nobody there. They're talking about popcorn features could also be evidence of water, like mineral veins. Like, how about veins? Indicates water flowed through these rocks. Yes, in veins. Okay, this is interesting. This is the first time I've seen this name. Steve Squires is the principal investigator about these Mars blueberries, and he's talking about it now. I could be censored on this, like, okay, I should be able to comment on this and play it, but I'm just going to show this one shot because sometimes they shut you off. Now, this is NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory. We're paying for this, so I should be able to comment on this. Now, Steve Squires is the principal investigator, and he's talking about these Mars blueberries, and they were just totally blown away when they saw them. On the surface of the Mars at that location was all of these tiny little blueberries. All right, this is right from JPL, NASA JPL. So these are the people that did this, and here's what they have to say.
And when the rover first turned on its cameras, it saw that the rim of the small crater was lined with exposed bedrock.
All right, they say bedrock. That is basement layer of your skin. All right, so you got your skin, and then you got all your little interstitial balls, and then you got your basement layer, and then you go below that. That's my interpretation. Let's see what he has to say.
So we took out our microscope for the first time, and we took a picture, and the surface of Mars at that location is littered with an uncountable number of little round things.
That were called blueberries because they looked like blueberries in a muffin. What we discovered was that those are features that form in water. And
They form in water. Well, let's just watch this.
and they were a really definitive sign that there had been liquid water.
This is tissue. This is tissue that's evacuated of all its fluids, and it still has some of its balls in there.
On the surface of Mars sometime in the past.
You know, after we left Eagle Crater, we went to Endurance Crater, and that's the crater we drove down in. And there we did what the geologists call an in-sequence stratigraphic section, which is essentially reading the chapters of the Martian history book in reverse.
You see that? This is not sedimentation. It's not sedimentation. That is biology right there. You want to see what it is? I'll show you. All right, this is a tissue mat. Basically, I believe this is tendon, and this is the way it flexes, and it can stretch a little bit, not much. Tendon is tough. And this is what we just saw up here on Mars, basically the same sort of thing. You see all this? That can do this little bit of stretching and so forth. It's cracked here and there now, but normally it was made to be able to do a little bit of this and that, a tendon. And I believe that's what that was, a tendon. Okay, so anyway, NASA refused to investigate these sarcomeres and the Mars crab and the Mars Morse code and all the other biology things that are on Mars. Instead, they keep spending a ton of money saying we'll keep looking at maybe there was water here a long time ago. Well, there was a lot more than water there. There was biology all over Mars. Here's the muscle sarcomeres, and here is the Mars crab. There are the sarcomeres. They just eroded away. See, this is why you know this is Mars, because see all the dust? There's no erosion here of water whatsoever. Everything here is just sort of dusted off out. So it's left everything pristine. You can see details you never see here on Earth. You never see that. You never would see these blood vessels coming out of there. They're just too fragile. They just go away, which is exactly what happened on mine. I showed you mine right here. That's the artery right there. And that would have had these little things coming out of it, going all over to service this muscle. And these also service the muscle. You need a lot of blood for muscle. This is the muscle site. That's the tendon. And then the bone was right up here. These are exceptionally preserved, soft-bodied creatures, and they come in chunks. They come in full body parts. They come in bones that are complete or bones that are broken. This one's broken. Inside is a different substance. It's the marrow has a different molecular chemistry to it than the surface, which is feldspar. Feldspar is the protective coatings, which is the collagens and keragens. And again, I think I showed you this before, but what it is phospholipids are the membranes that coat all your organs and muscles and tendons. Every single thing has a membrane. Even your red blood cells, even blood cells have membranes. Everything has a membrane. And it's made with phosphorus. Now, when that boiled down, and everything was in a hot water flood, when it boiled down in the presence of a lot of salts and silicates, it transitioned down into aluminum silicate. All right, the phosphorus boiled down into this aluminum silicate. All feldspar is aluminum silicates. All, basically, rocks are coated with feldspar because all these rocks were in the Great Flood. All right, every single culture on the face of the earth talked about giants and dragons and monsters and eternity and gods and great catastrophes, 100%, right across the board. And Immanuel Velikovsky wrote Worlds in Collision in 1950, which was an account of all of these cultures. He went all over Earth, everywhere, to all the cultures, you know, and to the museums and libraries and cultural centers, and picked up on all their history, and they all had a common thread. And that's what he reported on, which was this Worlds in Collision, where Venus came out of Jupiter, literally was ejected from Jupiter and almost hit Earth and then slammed into Mars. And here's the evidence. Well, we know the evidence on Earth was the Great Flood. Here's the evidence on Mars. That's where it hit, all the way across here. This is wider than the United States. This is on Mars. And that was an electrical discharge impact. And the reason it's an electrical charge impact was because Venus spins in reverse. And it charges up like unbelievable. And it's very, very, very hot. And here's what happened to Venus. There's the electrical discharge. To me, that's and where it hit, I don't know whether it hit here or here in the first, but this, if you go to any guy that ever did any, you know, arc welding, there it is right there. I know this one didn't tear a hole across. It doesn't look like a crater. I think this one discharged into Mars, and this is all like little splatters, basically. Like, I believe this would be the impact site, and it just splattered all that stuff away. You have to see some other better shots. I just have these gross shots, but I believe they're very, very accurate. See this? This is what I just showed you, the Valles Marineris crater. It goes all the way across Mars. This is much wider than the United States. And this appears to be the impact site. They call it a giant volcano. No. That is the impact of Venus into Mars. Totally recorded in history. 100% recorded. And there was supposedly 3 events, cataclysms to Earth, 52 years apart, where Venus went out and almost hit us, went out and came back and almost hit us again, apparently, and then something else happened, whatever. It's all recorded, and we're going to go through Velikovsky's accounts, because then he gets past this, where what happened to the Earth after this? What happened to the Earth after we had the Great Flood? It was called Ages in Chaos. It was another book he wrote. And he had another one, Oedipus and Akhenaten. And he used all of these ancient texts, this Epua or something. Here it was. Ipur and the book of Exodus. This is nightmarish. The rivers of blood, all of these infestations, all of the things that God said, here's what I'm going to do to you. Now that's what they wrote. Now there could be other explanations for this, but what I have found, I can't explain other than what they had written, which is these kind of things here, and all the giants and all the dragons and the Mars blueberries and all. It was what was written. It was what was written. And you know, the dragon in the desert, Typhon, is exactly what was written in Apollodorus. You know, that's not the Bible. All right, these are other ancient accounts. So I'm not going with just the Bible for one source, no. And it does throw a couple little monkey wrenches here and there, but I think the Bible was literally understood all of this stuff, whoever was writing it, but said, I really, you know, you put that in there, nobody's going to read this. They're going to think you're absolutely out of your mind. And so let's just forget about Enoch, forget about Jubilees, forget about these gigantic things and that the earth was giving birth to monsters, and we'll talk about Tartarus and hell and all that stuff, but we'll sort of make it sound like it's a little sort of a crazy sounding place where they described it exactly in these ancient texts. And the only thing to do is go back to these ones that were discounted and left behind and put on the side and see what they did have to say. And that's what I'm finding. And they had a lot to say, and I believe what they were saying was not just stuff made up to scare kids. Scary, yeah, but I don't think it was made up. Now, like I think I mentioned in the last couple of videos, I don't know how much further I can go with this. I've shown this over and over and over, and I'm not getting enough response to this to make it widely understood. You people are not passing this along. Maybe you understand the test, but you have to give the test. These things are for you to see and for others as a test. Millions of years in one picture. That's not millions of years. The thing fell over and died, some gigantic creature. That is not sedimentation. That is a tendon. And the reason was there was a bone right here. I can almost guarantee you that, and I'll show you why I can almost guarantee it. The bone just erodes away because they're calcium, so these salty, hot, silicon-rich waters eroded muscle, which is this side, and bone, which is this side, and leaves tendons. Tendons they don't really transfer, they don't migrate things through them. They're tough as hell. And here it is right here in mine. Here's the tendon. You see that? There's the tendon. And you see this strap coming back here, and you see that ball? All right, don't forget, this is the abrupt transition. Muscle here, which just eroded away. The tendon sticking straight up in the air, up to that ball. This is all glue, and the tendon. And where was the bone? Right here. All right, where'd I go with her? Hold on. Stay with me, don't run. Here it is. That's where it's actually attached. Remember I showed you the ball? This right here, from right down here down, and right over to here, is the tendon. That didn't erode. You see the little stripes coming through here? That's what tendon is all about. It's all straps. So all the way over to here, from here up and over, is still there. And the blood was at the top, just like this was. And it's growing very green. Let's take another look at it. Here's the blood at the top. Stuff's growing pretty green up there. Now here's all the tendon. I got the same thing in mind. I put it in a microscope. It's identical, no difference whatsoever. Here's that scruffy little part at the end that has all the glue and that ball. Now, the bone was attached right here. Right here is where the muscle attached to this tendon. Now, what does a tendon do? A tendon stretches just a taste, but it has to be able to move this way and that way if it's attached to a bone. The bone is your leg is going to go this way, it's going to go that way, but it has to stay attached to this ball, to that bone. This is the major attachment. Now, there's slurpees, they call them, small leucine-rich proteins, in between every one of these layers. And for that reason, it can go like this, and they can move amongst themselves. They can stretch this way and stretch that way and move amongst themselves and slide back and forth. Otherwise, you'd be bound up. You can't, and people do get bound up. They can't move. I got into that condition, and really what you need to do is just stretch a lot. And, maybe a couple little weights, and just, you don't have to do a whole lot of work. But anyway, that's a whole other issue. But you do have to work your muscles. And this is millions of years in one picture. No, not at all. Not at all. Okay, I guess I'm going to wrap it up at that. I've presented way more evidence than is necessary to merit an investigation of the things I presented. And they're giants, and this really is eternity and history. If the things they were writing about our afterlife is true, I want to know about it. So that's why I've had to do this stuff myself. You can't find it anywhere else. The giants and the myth and the history, the religions, everybody had their own religion because they had their own gods. Now, were they independent gods, or were they just part of the pack that everybody had a little territory, something like that? And did they end up having 2 or 3 or 4 real powerful ones, and they were the ones? And I mean, there's so much to talk about. But Velikovsky is the guy this is the guy we're really going to look into. Now, these books, I don't write them. I don't have anything to do with them. I don't publish them. I don't profit from them. And all they are is written about my work from my friend, Paul Amatucci. All right, you can look them up on Amazon. And they're not expensive, and they're not, they're nicely, you can see a whole bunch of words, and you can, a lot of places for notes and things. And a lot of this is not my work. He's got me as the author, but it's really not me. Paul is just using my papers. All right, so there'll be stuff in here that is not related to me, or that I don't necessarily endorse, but the concept, yes. All right, and he's got a whole batch of books about my electron flood theory and introduction to Mudfossils, and then Atlantis, and and they're coffee table books, and not a lot of money, and it's just something to get you started if you're interested. Okay, wrapping it up right now. I think we can do better looking into what's going on in Mars. I think you should start talking this up a lot. We're spending a lot of money to research this, and it just keeps coming back to the same thing. We just keep looking for the smallest little microbes. Let's look for life. I'm showing there is just life. It's everywhere up there. It's the same as it is here on Earth. And in neither place can they accept it. And no group can accept it. The people that say, oh, we're real religious people, they don't want to know about this because it changes. It changes a lot. It's a very invasive amount of research because it's going to make people uneasy. Let's go with that. But as far as I'm concerned, I want to be uneasy. If it's uneasy, it's uneasy. And Jesus said the same thing. He says it's not going to be easy. And he said, when you search, you keep searching. Do not give up. And when you find, you will be disturbed. And then you will marvel. And then he says, and then you will reign over all. Maybe if you figure everything out, they put you in charge somewhere. I don't know. That could be. I have no idea. At this point, I've got to go back to the beginning. But I think we're here to learn and progress maybe through the separate layers of intelligence, or separate layers of humanity, of compassion, of love, that type of thing, where you really learn what it means to be human. Maybe. I don't know. But I'm going to go back through all that stuff. You're welcome to stick around. That's all I can say. So I'm going to end it for today. But what I've shown you indicates to me that they just don't really care about the reality of the situation. There's just no question about the things I have shown here, and they have been DNA tested and CAT scanned, and there's so much of it now that it's not credible to say, oh, we didn't know about this. Just not credible. And once you know the truth, there's no excuse. Okay, I'm going to try to contact Stephen Squires. He was the head investigator for the Mars mission there, for what they were discovering, and in charge of trying to figure out what it was. Now, I think I have things to add. That's all. I'm not trying to go against anybody or anything. This is strictly in the interest of science. That's it. All right, I love you all, and I expect some kind of response. This is a government agency, and he's making these claims, and I have some claims to make. That's how science works. Let's find out.